Hello students, welcome to the answer writing program. Today we will be discussing topics from GS1, that is geography, important geophysical phenomena like earthquakes, tsunami, volcanic activity, cyclones, etc., geographical features and their location, then changes in critical geographical features including water bodies, ice caps and flora and fauna and the effects of such changes. So let's take an overview of all the three questions. The first question is related to the Pacific Ring of Fire and the volcanic activities. Why disproportionate number of volcanoes are over there in that region? The second question is about urban flooding. And the third question is about the impact of climate change on agriculture. So let's start doing all the questions one by one. The first question says, the Pacific Ring of Fire has a disproportionately large number of volcanoes when compared to any other plate boundaries combined together. Explain. The keyword is explain. It means we have to give reasons that why this statement is what it is mentioned over here. So we need to quote some reasons. And for that, the prerequisite is we have to tell that there are the disproportionate number of the volcanoes in the introduction. So what and facts or some data we can put it in introduction about the Pacific Ring of Fire, about the major volcanic activities over there, etc. So let's start with the introduction. So in this particular question, what we can write in the introduction? We can write something about the Pacific Ring of Fire, that the Pacific Ring of Fire is a stretch along the Pacific Ocean which is characterized by the volcanic activities and the frequent earthquakes. So this way you can start the introduction. You can also compare with other volcanic belts as well, that yes, approximately 75% of the total Earth's volcanoes are there in this region, are concentrated in this particular region, and the other major volcanic activities or the major other regions are Alpide Belt, Mid-Atlantic Belt, and also you can write about some rift valleys, African Rift Valley. So this way you can do some comparison with the other volcanic belts as well, or then towards the body, how you can connect with this disproportionate number of the volcanoes in the Pacific Ring with your body, how to make a smooth flow, that the plate tectonics helps in explaining this disproportionate number or the disproportionate number of the volcanoes or about the volcanic activities or the phenomena in this particular region. So this is how we'll go towards the body part. So we can give reference to the plate tectonics theory as well, that this is the theory which can help us in explaining that why this is disproportionate in number only in this particular region. Then comes the body part. But before body, I would like to put a light that why this Pacific Ring of the Fire or the Pacific Ocean has the disproportionate number through maps. Let's see. So this is Pacific Plate. This is Nazca Plate, and these are the two major plates in the Pacific Ocean. You can also see over here. Then this Pacific Plate is surrounded by Indo-Australian Plate, Eurasian Plate, North American Plate, Nazca Plate and the South American Plate or the Antarctic Plate you can write. So this way you can at least show through the world map that this is the location of the Pacific Plate, and then you can show the direction in which this Pacific Plate is moving. So this Pacific Plate is moving or subducting beneath this Eurasian Plate and the Indo-Australian Plate in the west and the southwest. So this is the major convergent boundary. And we all know that the Pacific Plate is the oceanic plate and these are the continental or the oceanic continental plate. So what this suggests is that this Pacific plate, when it is interacting with the other plate, either it is ocean-ocean convergence or the ocean-continental convergence. So first thing we have to note down is this thing, and second thing, here it is making majorly the transform boundaries. So these two things we need to note down, that in the eastern side either it is making the transform boundary or the convergent boundary. Like here, till here it is subducting beneath this North American plate, and here like this is divergent boundary, this is transform boundary, and again this is divergent boundary. So we need to see that what are the different types of the plate tectonics boundary this Pacific plate is making. Now let's move on to the main body part. Now we need to tell that what are the different reasons for the disproportionate number of the volcanoes. The very first thing is about the plate movement. We have seen in a very broad manner in a diagrammatically or through map that what is the plate movement with respect to the Pacific plate. So the Pacific plate, it involves or exhibit either the oceanic convergence or the oceanic continental convergence. It means in both the cases subduction is happening. When the subduction is include in any of the plate tectonic boundary, it means when the plate subducts beneath the other plate, and when this melts and come on the surface, it happens or it occurs in the results as a volcanic activity. So this is the major reason that due to subduction, because of the involvement of the oceanic and the oceanic continental convergence, subduction is there. That is why the volcanic activity is there. And you can see this much major subduction only in the case of Pacific plate only. As we have seen in the other plates, either the other plates are doing the continental convergence, which do not involve the subduction part, or there are divergent boundaries. Although the volcanism is there, but not subduction, so not huge volcanic activities are there, or either the transform boundaries are there, any other part except this Pacific plate. So we have already seen that some other volcanic belts are there, like Alpide belt and mid-Atlantic belt and other rift valleys are there, but majorly this Pacific plate, because of this behavior, is showing the characteristics of the huge volcanic activities. So you can write this, that this involves OO and OC convergence, and this involves a major subduction part, and more than any other plate movement, like other plate movements are either involving continental collisions or divergent boundaries are there, so not much that subduction. And you can also write the example over here about this Nazca plate subduction beneath the South American plate and resulting into the El Nevado Ojos del Salado, highest active volcano in the world, due to the subduction of the Nazca plate beneath the South American plate in the Pacific Ocean. So this is also the part of the circum-Pacific belt only. Next comes the plate speed and the plate size. We know that the Pacific plate is one of the largest plate. So when the plate size is huge, subduction is huge, and so as the volcanic activities. Next is about the plate speed as well. Pacific plate is moving at much faster rate as any other plate, and the intensity through which it is getting subducting, then only major intensive volcanic activities are also occurring over there. So relatively faster speed of the Pacific plate results into the faster subduction, results into the higher intensity and the frequency of the volcanoes. So this contributes to the concentration of the volcanoes in the Pacific belt as compared to any other region where the plate movements may be slower. So these are the reasons that why there are disproportionate number of the volcanoes only in this belt as compared to any other belt. Finally comes the hotspots. The Pacific Ring of the Fire, except all these things like OO convergence, OC convergence, there are other volcanic activities in the form of intraplate volcanism as the hotspot activities. So these also emphasizing or put exacerbate the volcanic activities. Like there are multiple volcanic hotspots such as Hawaiian or the Yellowstone. So these are the reasons for the disproportionate numbers. Finally, coming to the conclusion, you can write some recent example or recent happening anywhere in the world where the recent volcanoes has happened. You can put some example like the Tonga volcano in 2022 and Mayon volcano in 2023. This results into the gentle lava eruptions. So in these type of the question, you can quote some examples that any of the volcanic activity followed by the preparedness method, that if there is any warning system, if we are aware about the plate tectonic boundaries, active volcanoes, dormant volcanoes, what are the different habitation places, so in accordance to that we can take the evacuation measures, we can take the preparedness measures. So this way you can write the conclusion in like some static question as well, you can link it with the dynamic part, recent volcanoes and with respect to the preparedness measures. Now moving on to the model answer. First starting with some basic introduction about what is Pacific Ring of the Fire, and then reasons for disproportionate number, then showing by maps, and then finally conclusion. Now moving on to the second question. Indian cities like Chennai, Mumbai and Ahmedabad are witnessing increasing incidents of urban floods. So this is the context question is setting. In this context, discuss the reasons and the ways to mitigate them. So our question have two parts. First, we need to quote some reasons behind the urban flooding, and then second is about the ways how to mitigate them. So in introduction, what we can do, either we can write the definition of the urban flood and some example. In this type of question, you can also write some story of recent floods. You can give some name, its characteristics, like how much destruction or the damage it has given. You can do it with the help of some name of the human being as well, that this like XYZ Sita faces this much and it now she has to bear some disproportionate burden of water availability to the household, etc, etc. In a short introduction, you can write it in the introduction part. In any of the recent like case studies type question, if there is some recent happening over there, so then you can write about urban floods basic definition and then link it with the climate change. So what is urban flood? Like urban flood, it is about the excessive runoff or the inundation of the urban cities or major the developing or the developed cities, developed areas. And what are the reasons? Due to the increased surface runoff, due to the poor drainage capacity. So this results into the inundation or the floods or the urban floods we say. Then you can put some recent example that like just in 2023 December, cyclone Michong through its pathway via when that cyclone was passing and made a landfall in Andhra Pradesh. Before than that, it floods or inundates the Chennai region. So then also it results into the urban floods only. You can put some example over here. Then you can write about the climate change impact, that due to increasing climate variabilities, urban floods instances are getting increased again due to the poor drainage, due to the unplanned urbanization. So this way you can write it here that climate change exacerbates the situation or amplify the situation. Then before moving on to the main body part, you must know that the untimely heavy rains or the extreme weather events, they can be attributed to the climate variability or they can be attributed to like heavy rains or whatever. But urban flooding is mainly due to unplanned urbanization. There may be flash floods, there may be floods or the extreme weather events in the urban areas, but if we have the good proper drainage system, if we have the proper river pathways, then it may not result into the more damage or the urban floods. So the urban flood is mainly due to unplanned urbanization only. So this way you can start the introduction. Then comes to the body part, that we need to write down the reasons for the urban flooding in India. You can write approximately, like there are the two parts of the question. So what you can do, and it is a 10 marker question. So you can write 4 points in both of them, approximately 8 points in your answer, and this will suffice your marks. And then instead of writing just random points, you can divide it into the multiple dimensions, that what are the meteorological reasons, what are the hydrological factors, what are the anthropological factors behind the urban floods. So let's discuss that. The first thing is about the meteorological factors. Meteorological factors like heavy rainfall during the monsoon season due to the impact of climate change or the climate change variability, extreme weather events, they may impart to the urban floods. They may be like the factor for the urban flood. Then urban heat island. In the urban cities, we know what is urban heat island, and it changes the microclimate over there. So this also results into the urban floods. These are some factors. They may not be the major factors, but these are the factors. Then comes the hydrological factors. We have changed the natural drainage pattern, we have changed the river courses, we are poaching or encroaching into the river courses regions. So that is why, due to the changes in the natural drainage pattern, concretization, deforestation, because of these things, surface runoff has increased due to the increased concretized area and more than the percolation rate. So the water percolation capacity is getting reduced due to the increased urbanization, due to the pavements, due to the cement and the tar based structures, and the surface runoff is increasing. This is resulting into urban floods. Then comes the anthropological factors. First, we are neglecting the natural topography of the region. Always there is some natural topography of a region. There is some high lying areas, there are some low lying areas. So we have to be aware that where we are making the habitations more. Like if we are making more and more construction in the low lying areas of that particular region and rejecting the topography of that region, obviously that will result into the collection of the water whenever there are surface runoff or there are the drainage blockage. Obviously that low lying area will be inundated more. So we are neglecting the natural topography, and this results into accumulated water in the low lying regions. Then comes the urbanization. We are making more and more of the impervious surfaces that limits the percolation rate. Then comes the encroachment. We are doing the constructions in the water bodies, in the normal pathway of the river courses. So we are encroaching into the natural courses of the water bodies. Then comes the clogged drainage channels, improper solid waste disposal, inadequate sewer lines, siltations in the clogging and the silting of the drainage channel. This also results into the clogging or the blockage of the drainage pattern. And when these drains are blocked, obviously that water will flow on the surface only, and that results into the urban floods. Then comes the illegal mining activities. Like we are mining from the river courses and changing the thalweg or the river bed domain of that particular river. Like for sand for quartzite, we are mining and changing the natural course of the river as well. Then this results into the urban floods, or this results into the floods from that particular river. Like here you can quote some example of Gandak river. Gandak river in Bihar results into the flood this year. And also UPSC has asked the question about the Gandak river in prelims 2023, that what is the course of the river and in which water body it merges finally, or approximately that particular question only. So you must be aware that if there is a flood in that particular river, so you must know the pathway or the course of the river and what are the major water bodies and where it gets merged, from where it originates. So this is where you have to very cautious about your studies pattern, how to use prelims data into the mains, and how to use and whatever is there in the current affair, how to amalgamate into your preparation strategy. Then comes the uninformed release of the water from dams. So this is also the reason for the urban floods. Then absence of the administrative framework, like inadequate protection of the water bodies, ineffective urban planning. So these are the reasons for urban floods. Then ways to mitigate the urban flooding is the second part of the question. So first we need to monitor urban flooding. We need to analyze the topography of the particular region, that these are the low-lying, high-lying areas, these are the historical flood-prone areas, so we should avoid habitation over there. And we should enhance our preparedness according to that profiling of the cities. Then next comes the effective watershed management. Whole effective watershed management of the proper cities as a whole should be there, like regular desilting, cleaning and deepening of the drainage channels, implementing the rain water harvesting techniques, like Tamil Nadu has mandated rooftop water harvesting techniques for all the residential purposes. Then storm water drains. We need to promote this stormwater drains. We have seen this thing in our roads and in the movies as well, in the developed countries, and in also India we have seen these. What are these? When the storm water is excessive on the concrete roads, that excess water goes down and helps in recharging the water table from beneath. Then next comes the sponge city concept. Means we are making our roads and we are making the land more percolated, like the water should be seeped down, more storage of the cities should be there for water, more absorption capacities should be there instead of more runoff. Then comes the developing blue-green infrastructure. We should do it in the holistic way. We should promote the preservation, restoration of the water bodies also as the ecological restoration, because both of them works in the holistic manner only. So we should not ignore one thing and to preserve second thing. So we should do it in a balanced manner only, and in the holistic development should be there. Then comes urban river management. We should promote the conservation, development and restoration of the river resources in the urban areas. Then comes the integrated development of the groundwater as well as the surface water resources, so that again it should be integrated in approach. We should not first do the surface, how to decrease the surface runoff. We should do it in a holistic manner or the integrated manner. Finally comes the conclusion. Now maximum we have written down in everything in the question itself. So what you can write in conclusion is about the governmental measures, or you can write some debate part, that the major issue is going, what the major issue is going is about the sustainable development versus haphazard development. So this is the major issue, and the urban floods, the major underlying reason for the urban floods is this only. So this way you can setting the context towards the end also. And our government is making effort like Amrit Sarovar, Amrut Mission, Smart Cities Mission to protect from the urban floods. So this way our second question is done. Now let's see the model answer. Writing something about the urban floods, some giving example and how the flood peaks to this, then major causes, ways to mitigate, and finally conclusion and governmental initiatives at the last. Now let's move on to the third question. What is the impact of climate change on agriculture? This is the first demand of the question. Now the second demand says, discuss the measures to mitigate the impact of climate change on agriculture. So this would be the second demand. First, we need to tell the impact, and second, measures to mitigate. So the question which has a recent context or the contemporary, whatever we can write it down there, we can link it with climate change. Then if the question is on about the climate change in agriculture, we can write something about UNFCCC, how it, what the different reports are saying. That we can also write about the IPCC report, second assessment report. You can also write something related to that. So in introduction, what we can do here is IPCC second assessment report says that the crop yield could fall by 10 to 25% by 2050 due to the higher temperatures and extreme weather events. So now this is setting the context that this is how the climate change is impacting the agriculture negatively, that it is reducing the 10 to 25% crop productivity or the crop yield. So this way you are starting the introduction. Then moving on to the body part, we need to write down the impact of climate change on agriculture. So for this, we need to see that what are the different aspects of the climate change and how it impacts the different dimensions of the agriculture. So climate change means warmer temperature, precipitation patterns has changed due to climate change, then extreme weather events, then sea level rise and various other things. So how the warmer temperature impacts the agriculture? When the temperatures are higher or the heat waves are there, it means increased evaporation and reduced soil moisture. And when both of these things are there, it means reduced soil or crop productivity or the crop yield. So first way, we have seen that how the warmer temperature, due to its increased evaporation rate and reduced soil moisture, it impacts the soil or the crop productivity. Next comes the precipitation pattern, how this climate change has changed the precipitation pattern and how now it impacts the agriculture, different dimensions of agriculture. So precipitation pattern, how it has changed, like it has impacted monsoon, like delayed monsoon, a delayed onset of the monsoon, and that too for the shorter period of time. It means it reduces the water availability in the Indian region. So this, when the Indian region, when the water resources are less, it directly impacts the agricultural productivity, and also it creates the shortage in the water availability, and this creates issues in the agricultural economy. And second part is about the precipitation pattern has changed, means they have increased the growing season, means now the duration when the temperatures are high, these are larger in time, these are the time period is now increasing, so increased growing season. Maybe this growing season impacts in a positive manner, so this benefits some crops, but it majorly negates the maximum crops like wheat, barley. These are negatively impacted by the increased growing seasons. Then comes the extreme weather events. We can write three things in extreme weather events like droughts, floods, heat waves, etc. So droughts, again the water availability decreases the soil moisture, decreases the soil nutrients. So this impacts the crop productivity, soil moisture. Then floods. Floods depletes the topsoil of the land, means the soil erosion is there, again directly impacting the crop productivity. Then heat waves, again we have seen that for the larger growing seasons, and heat waves directly destroys or damages the crops. Next is about the sea level rise. Sea level rise, it means intrusion of the salt water into the coastal areas, it means the coastal erosion, and also the submergence of the agricultural land in the coastal areas due to sea level rise. So again these things impact the agricultural productivity. And also the climate change, the impact of the climate change is directly visible, as we can see that there are the increased pests and the disease attacks, because this is the high temperature provides a conducive environment, favorable environment for the pests to grow. Like we have seen that the maize got attacked with the locust. Then finally impact on livestock, that how the increased temperature impacts the grazing land, how decreases the productivity of the grazing land, how it impacts the livestock, their health, their reproduction manner, etc. So this impacts the livestock. And finally the agricultural part. You can also put some examples over here, like the data that according to IPCC second assessment report, 1/3 of land is already degraded due to climate change or multiple other reasons. By 2050, rice production will be reduced by 20 to 30%, and maize production would be reduced by 70%. And we have seen the reason that the maize, due to the climate change, the pest attack, locust attack was there on the maize. So this way we can write this body part. And finally the second demand of the question, what are the measures to mitigate the impact of climate change? Very first thing is about the sustainable agricultural methods, agroforestry, the mixture of both the trees and the shrubs along with the crops. This increases the soil balance, soil nutrients, water retention capacity of the soil, and reduces the soil erosion, and also decrease in the gases emission from the agricultural land. So this results into the sustainable agriculture. Then comes the biofertilizers. Then organic farming, we should promote it. Then efficient water management, like we should promote modern irrigation techniques and traditional water harvesting techniques like pars, johars in Rajasthan. Then modern irrigation techniques like deficit irrigation. Deficit irrigation means like irrigation for the deficit areas, drip irrigation, sprinkler irrigation, which increases the optimal utilization of the water as a resource. This will not result into the wastage of the water, and each drop more crop would be enhanced. Then comes the adaptive crop. We should go for the climate smart agriculture or the climate resilient agriculture. Drought resilient crops we should promote, and for this government has come up with 1700 new adaptive crops which are drought resilient or the climate resilient. Then comes, we should promote the technological adoption and the diffusion in the agriculture, like precision agriculture. When we know that what are the different characteristics of my farmland, like what is the soil moisture, when the rain will be over in this particular area, what are the different fertilizers need for that land, only then I will pour some water, some fertilizer, not in excess but in the optimal use. Then for this, you can quote some example as well, that the private startup Krishi Tantra has come up with the precision agricultural techniques. It is in developmental, for the developmental purposes, and they are giving it for the very affordable rates as well. Next is smart auto irrigation, like the sensor based irrigation is there, drone based irrigation. So then only when the farmlands only requires water, then only it will sprinkle the water. So this way we can take measures to mitigate the impact of the climate change. So we should promote the climate proof agriculture. So till now we are saying that prevention is better than cure. Now for the agriculture, prevention is better than adaptation. So we need to go for the prevention measures. We should reduce the greenhouse gases emission. We should promote agroforestry, biofertilizer, organic farming, so that the climate change should be reduced. Like climate change variability should not that much. Then finally conclusion. In conclusion, you can write some governmental measures, what the government are doing for this. Like Indian Council of Agriculture Research, ICAR, has come up with the project NICRA. This resulting into the, like this project aims to enhance the resilience of agriculture due to climate change and the climate change vulnerabilities via R&D. Next, ICAR along with Indian Meteorological Department has started the program Gramin Krishi Mausam Seva program. In this, they are providing the accurate crop specific data to the farmers. Next, agriculture contingency plans. Government is doing profiling of 650 plus districts for the profiling of that region, like what are the different agroclimatic zones over there, what are the soil characteristics in that region, what is rainfall pattern, soil characteristics, irrigation sources, so that the farmers should take the informed decision, and government will also take measures in accordance to that only. So this way our third question is also over now. Let's see the model answer, starting with some data, IPCC report, then impact of climate change on agriculture, then measures, then finally how to tackle the climate change, how it is necessary to protect and preserve the agricultural industry. So this way our discussion for today is over. Thank you and have a nice day and keep writing.